Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to my talk about contract first API development with OpenAPI. I want to introduce myself. First, my name is Birgit Kratz. I'm from Germany. I'm a freelancing IT consultant, mainly working in the Java backend environment. I have more than 20 years experience in this field, and I'm a co-organizer of the Softwerkskammer in Cologne and Düsseldorf. That's where I'm located in Germany. And Softwerkskammer is actually the German software crafting community. You can find my contacts here, so contact me anytime you want. What do I want to talk about today is what is API or RESTful API, and why do contract first versus a code first approach. And I want to talk about my experiences in our current in my current project with the contract first API development. I want to show you how we do it. Actually, my main focus will be on a short demo and my experiences with this approach. But first, what is an API actually? Application Programming Interface. Actually, it's something which enables communication between computers or computer programs. And you can have like internal APIs or which only work with internally with your local programs, or something like partner and customer APIs, or even public or open source APIs. My experience is more in the field of partner and customer APIs, not so much in public or open source APIs. So what is a RESTful web API? The REST means representation and state transfer, and RESTful basically is based on the HTTP methods, which are like get, put, post, and delete, and you access your resources via URL encoded parameters, and mainly use JSON or XML as formats to transmit data. And it's a form of client-server communication. It's stateless, it's synchronous, and usually you have something like hypermedia as well defined, like links to other resources or whatever you can do with to change your resources you have probably created or something like that. So actually, how do you develop a RESTful API? You can have like two approaches. One is code first, and the other one is API definition first or contract first. And the code first approach is based on you have source code which contains the API, and this source code is the single source of truth. And you can generate or write documentation out of the source code to document the API, or you can manually generate some sort of API definition for others to use your API. But the thing is that you first have the code, the server code kind of, and with the APIs inside that code, and for others to use this API, you have to somehow describe it for them, and only after that the client or the site who wants to use your API can implement their code. So the API definition has the tendency to be a bit behind what's in the source code, and maybe if you have the source code first, you can kind of have the tendency to go for rather technical aspects in comparison to more domain-related aspects in your API. That's what I think can happen. Advantages, of course, is if you already have code, you can, like legacy code, you can create your API definition out of that. But after that, you maybe should switch to the other aspect, which is API definition first approach, where you have something like maybe an API design up front, maybe based on DDD concepts, certainly business-driven requirements and domain requirements. And out of that, you can generate either manually or tool-based an API definition. And this API definition will be your single source of truth. Whenever this changes, everything else changes. You can generate automatically the API documentation and some source code, like client stubs or server stubs or mocks or something. And the documentation can be in any format you can imagine: PDF, ASCII doc, HTML, you name it. The advantage is that the API definition, which comes out of this approach, is more business or domain related, and this is the contract you agree upon with your customers, and you can automatically generate things like code or documentation, and the implementation of this API definition can be done simultaneously on both sides, on the server side and the client side. So you don't lose time there. The slight disadvantage might be that the tools that generate code or generate documentation might not cover all aspects that the API specification offers. But in my experience, I haven't found something yet where this would bother me. So in our project, what kind of tools do we use? Of course, we use the OpenAPI specification. We still use the version 3.03. I know that there's a new version 3.10, but I think the tooling is still a little bit behind this new version, so we still use 3.03. And all these addresses here lead you to this specification and documentation, which is really, really great in my experiences. What kind of, how can you write your OpenAPI definition? You could, of course, use the online Swagger editor. And what we do, or I do, I use IntelliJ IDEA as my daily tool, and I use the OpenAPI Swagger editor plugin for IntelliJ IDEA. which is really great and gives you a lot of help in writing the definitions. And what else do we use? We use a code generator, an OpenAPI generator, which you can find on GitHub. And in our project, we use the Maven plugin for it, since our project is based on Maven. And this OpenAPI generator gives you a lot of possibilities to generate code or documentation. And you can generate client code and server code in any language you would like to. Just to name a few, is Java, JavaScript, any C, Kotlin, TypeScript, Ruby, PHP, Haskell, you name it. It's really a great tool, and we use it extensively. Of course, there are more tools you could find, and a list of those tools can be found under this address, openapi.tools. But in our project, we mainly use the described OpenAPI generator tools. I want to show you how we do things, really, and for that I have prepared a little example project, a bookshelf, and this picture would probably be something like the upfront design phase you do. You say you want to have a bookshelf application, and you obviously have books and authors for the books, and you want to have methods where you can get a list of all books, or a special book by ISBN number, or you want to create a book, or maybe delete a book, and so you want to manage all the books you have, and you want maybe to manage all the authors for the books. The same here. List all authors, or list a certain author, or create a new author, and then maybe you want to have something like view a relationship between authors and books. So this is just far from ideal, this project. It doesn't cover everything. It's just a play project, really. I wanted to show you how we do things with in our project. So I will share my my IDE with you. I hope you can see it well. So what we do is we have a multi-module Maven project here. It's called Bookshelf. And here in this submodule contract, we define the contract for the RESTful API with the help of OpenAPI specification. So I have put an example here. So what we define is the paths to the endpoints. As you can see, we have a books endpoint, as I showed you in the slides before, and we have something like a get method, and this get method would just return a list of all the books we have in the shelf. And of course, if the shelf is empty, we would have something like 204 return code, HTTP return code, which is no data. We have a return code of 200 if we find books on the shelf and we can list all the books, Or we could have something like a for1 if the user is not authorized to use the bookshelf. The same is for creating a new book. We have a post request as well on the books path, and we would send a new book there, and we could have responses like to1 created, again for1 not authorized, and so on and so on. So this definition here, we usually discuss with our customers. How do we want to have the endpoints? What kind of returns code do we have? What kind of input data do we have? What format do the input data? What is required? What is not required as input data? For instance, the book here, it's a schema definition. The book has properties like title, ISBN, and authors, a list of authors, and maybe we defined that only the ISBN must be required as a property field. So this is the thing we discuss with our customers. When I talk about we, is like we in our project are kind of the server side. We implement the server side of this API, and our customers will implement the client side of this API. So we discuss all the details, all the things like input data, return data, exceptions, required data, and so on and so on. There's a lot more you can define here, something like security and a lot more detail of things you can send back and forth with this API. And after that, this is our contract. We agree upon that, and after that, we will go and generate some code out of this contract. I said we is the server side. I have an example here. So what we do is we have, as I said, we use a Maven plugin to generate the code. This is the OpenAPI generator Maven plugin we use, and we configure it in our case to use this contract we defined first. We want to have a Spring server in our case, and we say, okay, the API classes will be in this package, and the model classes will be in this package, and some other stuff we can define, like we only want to have interfaces generated and no default implementation. There's a lot of things we can define here, which is really there's a good documentation about the generator side, on the generator side. So when we built this project, I've done this already. We have code generated for us here. I showed to you. It's one is the API side. You see there's a books API, and here you find all the methods we defined inside the OpenAPI YAML, and you can see that we have something like an add book method or a fetch all books method, and fetch by ISBN method. Those are just interfaces here. It's an interface. So what we need to do is implement the interface, which I have done just as an example here in the interface bookshelf controller in this case, because it's a Spring project. You just implement the Books API interface here and just say what will be returned. In this case, at the book, we create a book and return the book itself, which we created, and fetch all books. We would just get all the books. In this case, the books are stored in the server application, in the service application. The books are stored just here in a hash map for this example. And this is actually all you have to do for the server side. And the client will do just the same. We have, again, the Maven plugin. And in this case, we want to have a Java client generated. And again, we define some packages and some configuration for the generation, and the generated code will look something like that. We have the API again here, a client in this case, and we can call all the methods like add a book or list all the books. This is just generated code. It looks sometimes a bit awkward, but it's really good code. I couldn't have wrote it better. And we have, of course, the model here, the book model. It's just plain Java with some annotations, and the client side has to implement or call all these methods. I've done it here. This is the bookshelf client. First, it initializes the API client, the default API client here on this endpoint. This is where the server listens to, and then you just call with the API client. You call the methods and you get all the information. I want to show that to you running, so I will start. Hope you can see all that. I will start the server first. This is a Spring Boot application, so I start as Spring Boot. And once it's started, I run the client. This is the client. So what you can see is that the client tries to fetch the books from the bookshelf and first received no books, and then we add some books to the shelf and then try to fetch the books, and then it received all the 2 books. And over here on the server side, you can see the same logging, like it received a request to fetch all books, but it has not found the books, and it received a request to add the books, and so on and so on. So this is with very little code, you can have a big effect, and you don't have to write much yourself. So this is my little demo. And other topics within the specification always come up, something like versioning. You can do versioning with OpenAPI specification via path versioning. This is always a big point of this discussion. And what you cannot do, at least not with the version 303, is something like versioning via types. This doesn't work, because you cannot define two get methods, for instance, for the same endpoint, where you just say you want to have different media type with it, and maybe call different methods in your code. That this doesn't work so far. I must say, I don't know whether it will come in a later version. You, of course, can define something like security in your API. You have to describe what kind of security do you want to implement. In this case, in this example, it would be like API key or authorization or OAuth 2. And to use it, you have to apply it. You can apply it globally for all the methods you want to have, or within the endpoints. I think you can have your endpoint related security things. Another thing is, if you want to do REST, or RESTful, you usually have something like hypermedia, but you can define links, but links are not equal to hypermedia requirements. So what you do is, for instance, you have a response here. Once you created a book, for instance, and there comes a response with an ISBN in it, you can define a link. This is your contract, so you define that there must be a link in the response, and the link will lead to maybe another endpoint. So how you do that is you define the link. You say from the response body, take the response body is this, take the ISBN, which is this, and call a method fetch by ISBN, which is defined over here, fetch by ISBN, and the parameter ISBN is the parameter which you define here. So this is how you define links in OpenAPI. But I think the tooling is not really ready yet to create anything useful out of it. At least as far as I know. If you know any tool that does create the links, please let me know. So this is what I wanted to show you about how we use OpenAPI and what we do with it. And it helps us a lot in our project. So you can find the example code on GitHub. I put it there. And so let me know if it was useful, what I showed you today. And you can contact me anytime, either via email or on Twitter. So please do. And I hope you have a nice conference. And thank you. Bye-bye.